evening. So glad to have you guys here. As always, as usual, I start out by saying your time is a valuable thing, and spending a little bit of it with me will always be greatly appreciated. Thank you so much. Whether you're watching this live right now or you're going to catch this in the rerun, I do appreciate you taking time to listen all the way through, listen to what we talk about. It's always interesting. It does help with the YouTube algorithm. That's always a hard word, algorithm, to boost us up there. So if you could do that as well, that would be appreciated. Thank you, guys. Well, I am feeling better. Feeling a little bit more myself tonight, I had to say. Um, Scott says that '70s show. I don't think I've ever seen that episode. He was saying somebody moved every single thing in his game room 1 inch to the right. In that '70s show, in an episode, what was the episode called? Something basement. And anyway, they moved everything in the basement 2 inches to the left. So yeah, that's actually a real episode. Ben, how you doing? Good to see you, Mr. Watson. He's not going to be here tonight, but I appreciate you chiming in just the same. They could have cleaned it at least. I only noticed it because the dust footprint's low. That's funny. That's a funny one. It's you may have gremlins. You never know. Those things, they show up and they start moving things around. Believe me, they take things of mine, like my phone or my reading glasses. Swear I put them in one place, but they're somewhere else. Gremlins, man. Look into it. Yeah. I bought the most amount of Japanese guitars this month that I have in a while. And you have to say to yourself, well, okay, Mike, you really must like Japanese guitars. And I do. I feel strongly that in this market right now, even a soft one like this, uh, because of the quality that they represent and the fact that they can be found still at reasonable prices, um, people snap them up. So I found probably the most beautiful Tokai ever. It is a Silver Star that I bought. And in the original case, although I don't know if I'm going to be able to get the case over right now or not, we'll see with how I'm trying to ship these. But candy apple red, without a scratch on it, without a dent or a flaw in the job, from 1983, Silver Star. And there really is no difference. Silver Star SS50. And if you recall, it had a springy style, a springy sound, ST50. And those two guitars are made in the same factory. So they're the same guitars. One was domestic only, the Silver Star, and the springy sound, those got out a bit. But I am very, very interested to see how it plays, how it shapes up against the springy sound that I had, that you guys got a chance to take a look at too. So there's that. I, of course, have a Flying V. I have a couple of Greco Rickenbackers and another Greco SE Strat. This one is a 600. We've had a 400, we've had a 500, a 700. I found a 600, so we'll be taking a look at that. So that's what I've been managing, dealing with for the last few days, that part of my business, which is always good to be doing business. Whatever you do, you should do it with all your might and all your strength. Put as much of yourself into it as you can. That's my best advice. I certainly put it in this month. I hope I'm right, but they were such fantastic bargains that I couldn't pass on these really good opportunities there, even with the bats. So there's that. But it got me into thinking about guitars in general again, which is what we should be doing on this channel. This is a guitar channel, guitar oriented channel, and we talk about guitar stuff here. I have delved into the companies that make those guitars a lot recently, but I thought I would put the focus right back again tonight, square on the guitar itself, talking about it. And the reason that I want to do that is because there are conflicting stories out there about the guitar market. I'm drinking juice tonight. This is apple, raspberry, banana, blueberries, and chia seeds. Chia is a very interesting one in that mix. Not my favorite, but at least it's healthy. It's better than the Coca-Cola I usually drink, the sugar water I usually do during these live streams to keep myself awake. I think this is a better option. But a lot of the conflicting stories are whether or not the guitar market is dying. Now, there are people on YouTube who have come out with reports that they feel that the pedal market is dying, or certainly flatlining. The sales in the pedal market is decreasing. A lot of that has to do with oversaturation in the market, and I've covered that before. So that's not really a great surprise. Even I myself, this is, my pedal board, and I have others that, depending upon what I'm trying to do to fill those spots, but this is the basic board, and I'm not looking to or thinking about anything else. I considered Behringer Vibe 69, but again, like I said, I'll wait till I can get a second hand. I am going to get one, I decided in the end, but I'm not going to buy a new. That one is definitely a second-hand pedal. But in the guitar market, there seems to be a focus of young females in the demographic. Although every time you hear that quoted by anybody, I remind you that that is a Fender stat that was generated through their own internal polling, and they skewed the poll towards women. So that's not really the dependable, stat to base any kind of assumptions on. However, we will use it tonight just to point out it's being said. Is it true or not? Obviously, I don't think so. You can say something is, but maybe it's not. So, dying market all the way around. But it was a small market to begin with, actually. Again, I always talk about there's 100 people in a room, 10% of them, 10 of those people play guitar or some kind of instrument. That's generally how it skews. And this artificial inflation in a lot of industries hit the guitar market, and it was popped up to be a lot bigger thing than it really was. And, the people interested in music out there hasn't changed. There was a shift towards electronica and sample-based stuff, but people are getting back into playing guitars and other things, as evidenced by, and I don't want to use it as a true gauge, but you cannot deny that some of the Grammy Award winners were more guitar orientated. So that was promising. Scott, Mike, do the flying and V specifically related to the triangle UFO phenomenon? They could have just called the V and you didn't get things like flying SGs. I always thought it was odd. Well, back when Leo Fender was coming up with space, this was the 50s. And space age designs were the cars like the Corvettes, the T-Birds. It was in a lot of things. The new trailer for the Fantastic Four movie that's coming out in July is a great example of that kind of style. One of the things that makes that movie attractive, and also the colors as well, the DuPont colors. And so it was a space age thing. The Explorer and the Flying V were both designed at the same time, and they were both was supposed to reflect that, like the tail fins. In the case of the Flying V, you think of the tail fins on a Caddy at that time, like a 56, 57 Caddy. Those tail fins were, like the Flying V, and the Explorer, of course, being more lightning bolt kind of thing. So that's where the inspiration from those Gibson came across, because they were, in competition with Fender and some of the Bassmaster, and they wanted to come out with their own quirky designs themselves. It was just the fad of the time. It was the design thing of the late 1950s. And so the inspiration were generally drawn from the space race. I've never heard the term Flying V's outside of guitars. Yeah. So, again, think more of like rocket ship. Think more like tail fins to caddies, things like that. These were the things that they drew their inspiration from. A lot of the guitar makers. And again, one of the reasons why they were using car manufactured colors like DuPont in order to paint their guitars. And why, like for example, this candy apple red, the original candy apple red that Leo Fender was using was a DuPont color for cars. So a lot of inspiration there in the guitar market during that time from the design choices of the era. But, this is more on the historical side of things when I talk about that, because, knowing the history of them is one level of things, but on a basic level, which is where I want to talk about tonight, is the things that you should know if you want to get a guitar, but probably nobody told you. They certainly didn't tell me when I was a kid. This thought came about tonight because I've been reminiscing. I guess that's what happens when you get older. Thinking back, trying to really remember the order of events in terms of what was my first electric guitar and where I got it. I know it was a made in Japan Squire Bullet. I've really kind of narrowed that down. White. But I can't remember if it was a Telecaster or a Strat. I really can't at this minute. But I bought it, I took it home, and I never had a setup on it that I know of, nor do I know if they ever set it up at the Guitar Center. This is Guitar Center circa 1982, 83. And I never, ever did a setup on it. I learned how to change the strings, but my string changes were super rough. They were not the nice little neat jobs that they are today. Let me tell you that much. And I only changed them when I had to. And so it goes on from there. Have you ever thought about what it takes to own a guitar? I bet a lot of people just pick up a guitar, like me, decide to play and then realize, wait, I have to change the strings, adjust the action. What about the truss rod? Because heat and humidity and temperature it's a living thing, that guitar neck. It can move around. Hey, Maddie. He says, hey all, I'm driving, but listening in. I appreciate it, Miss Two Hats. Both hands on the steering wheel, please, sir, at all times. Thank you so much for listening in. That's great, man. I guess I'll have to get my late night, trucker's radio tonight. Light moves. We're going to talk about guitars now. I don't put you to sleep, Maddie. So, if you own a guitar, what's the biggest surprise maintenance-wise is the question I put at the top of the chat there. If you take a look at that question, I'd like to hear from you guys in the chat, whether you do it now, tonight, or down in the comment section. if you could say, what is the biggest surprise maintenance wise you ever had with an instrument that you owned? So we're going to cover about how easy versus how hard different guitars are to maintain, common mistakes beginners make with guitar care. I'm going to show you here in real time about string changes, setups, and a few other things. And I think I'm going to start on string changes because I think that it's the most basic task. I think that in terms of difficulty, it is one of the least difficult things that you could do in terms of your basic guitar maintenance, is changing the strings. Now, I didn't bring it in. I meant to bring it in. I forgot it. But I do have this because, as you guys know, this is my 2001 Squier Affinity, finally back together in one piece. I'm going to use this as a demo model tonight to talk about these different things. But you know, when you have something as simple as a Les Paul, which the strings are fed through here, and then you can either do a wrap where you feed the string through here and wrap it around the top, or you can have it straight in the back. It just depends upon how you want to string it, but probably owning a Les Paul or SG or any of those types of guitars are the easiest to string. And because there's no kind of imbalance in the string tension, which we'll talk about in a minute, that you will find on some guitars. And there's really no reason why Les Paul or SG owner should have any real difficulty with changing the strings. Now, in terms of using a string tuner kind of device in order to, you can get them their battery run. They'll basically wind the strings for you. Once you feed it through, they'll do that. I don't advise that. I don't like those. Those can have a lot of odd torque to them, and they can cause damage to your string, your tuners. You got to do it by hand. And I always start with the E string, and I work my way from there. And it will take a few days, as you guys well know, for those strings to settle in. But if you got a good intonation, you got a good setup, and if you got good nut, not necessarily tuners, but your nut is good, then you're pretty much real good to go from that point. But when you're dealing with a Les Paul or an SG, that's one thing. When you're dealing with, and this is the only one I could dig out, I had time, was a floating trim like you would find on a Strat. That's a little bit of a different thing, because in the case of this, if you remove one string from this, especially if it's a floating trim system, then you'll get an imbalance in your intonation with these. So in terms of difficulty, Les Pauls and SGs being the least difficult, I would put stringing up a Strat to be a level above that. Not a drastic move up, but still a little bit more difficult, especially getting them through. Some people will keep the back plate off of their Strat, just so they can more easily assess the strings when you're doing string changes. I do that myself for that reason, actually, to tell you the truth. It's not really aesthetic with me. It's just so much easier to change strings when you don't have that back panel on. Scott, I don't work on my guitars. I pay 4% of their cost annually to have a guitar tech to do anything for me. I'll know I'll scratch them if I go near them with a screwdriver. That's not true. Well, I don't know. Another thing that I was thinking about when I was discussing this tonight was the reality that some people don't like digging into doing things. and some do, like me. I remember the axle snapped on my Jeep, and I, in the pouring rain, got underneath there, took the drivetrain. I'm sorry, not the axle, the train, not the axle, the drivetrain snapped. Took it out, uh, went to a metalworks place, a guy I knew, had him weld it back together and put it back. My father was amazed. My father, to this day, still says, "Remember that time you took that truck apart?" But I was always a tinkerer, so and wanted to fix things. So I guess it really comes down to, as well, in this discussion tonight, and it's a good point, Scott, that some folks are tinkerers and some folks prefer to pay a tinkerer to do the work for them. I'm a hybrid. As you know, I have Fern, and I'm going to touch upon that tonight. Some things that I won't do. There's some things that I will do. There's some things that I won't do, and I'll touch about that tonight. I'm kind of a hybrid between the two. Um, Now, of course, a Floyd Rose tremolo. I've never owned a guitar with a Floyd Rose. I merely mention it to say that in terms of that scale of difficulty, would be about a 4. So if Les Paul is a 1 and a floating Strat trim is a 2, I would say a Floyd Rose, really honestly, is about a 3 or 4 in terms of difficulty, I guess, out of 10. And I really don't mess with them. Um, uh, you have to unlock the nut. You got to measure the tension. You have to balance the strings. You have to hope that the tuning doesn't slip. There's just so many things with those that uh, if you're a beginning guitar player, I would strongly advise you avoiding guitar with a Floyd. I don't care if your Guitar Hero had one. Guitar Hero has a guitar tech. He's like my man here, Scott, that's doing that for him. And for a first time person, that may not be the way to go. That may not be the way to go. Like I said, you can do a restring on a Les Paul. You can do a restring fairly easy on even a floating trim. I deck mine always, so that makes it even easier. But a Floyd Rose, yeah. So that's my advice on that. Google what outer space movie came out in 1992, just that. Yeah, I think I'm gonna pass on that one. I mess with fretwork, but I don't mind truss rod adjust. I don't mess with fretwork, CJ Boy. Hey, how you doing, CJ Boy, by the way? I don't mess with fretwork, but I don't mind truss rod adjustments or some soldering, but definitely wouldn't have felt comfortable doing 10 to 15 years ago. Yeah, CJ Boy, I'm in that crowd again. Like I had no choice when I lived in Singapore. I lived in Singapore for 5 years, from 2015 to 2020. And I had to do the work. I had to learn how to do it there because it wasn't an easy thing to find um, a luthier to do that. So that's what got me into it. So it was kind of a situational thing. There are some things, like I said, I will talk about that I am not comfortable with doing. But frets are something, again, if you want to do frets, you want to get into frets, one of the most key things, of course, is getting yourself one of these. Also, of course, do I have it here handy? A decent set of fret files as well. And I know it seems like a scary thing, but if there's things that you can do in order to, certain tools that you can use in order to check your work, your eye, if you got a good eye for that, your eyeballing of that will tell you. A lot of these import guitars really need a fret crowning level finish done on them, especially fixing these edges. So even a basic tool, or even just learning how to use a fret file and learning how to properly get that nice. I mean, the frets on this are butter. This is I think the second fret job that I did. And again, stuff like that shouldn't be to everybody. You know, if you got a new guitar and you just hate those frets, that's really something that you can do, and you really, really won't mess it up too much. I don't think. But again, so I would say in the scale of difficulty, doing a fret level crown, something like that, I would put at a skill level about a 5 or 6. No, I would put it at 5, about midway. Because I think once you get over the overall fear of messing up or scratching the wood, which again you won't if you take proper precautions, taping off areas that you don't want damaged, things like that, you'll find that you'll save yourself a lot of time, and it's not very difficult. It's not a very difficult thing to do. Truss rod adjustments we're going to get into in a minute. I'm a HVAC tech, then build a rooftop AC unit with my eyes closed, but guitars, nope. I trust myself with my guitars. I hear you, man. Like I said, yeah, okay, so it's not that. Definitely in your case, it's just, but you know, it's wise. Either way, whether you do it, at the end of the day, guys, whether you do it or not, or if you pay a tech like Fern to do it for you, do it. And we're gonna touch on that at the end of this. William says TS-808. I had all of the 808 samples in my MPC 60 back in the 1990s. I used them when I thought that they were appropriate. I was doing a lot of R&B music at that time, and a lot of those sounds were being used in R&B. So yeah, I know the 808 very well. I'm sure I have their library here somewhere. Setup. Ever pick up a guitar and wire it plays so terribly when it could be a $3,000 guitar or $300 guitar? No difference there if it's set up improperly. Checking neck relief with a capo in feeler gauge. Get yourself a capo of feeler gauge and check your neck relief. The tools that you have, I have them here in this black case here. There are, do I have it handy? Let me see. Maybe I do, maybe I don't. I usually do. No, maybe it's in the next room. There is the Gibson multi-tool, which honestly speaking can be used to make truss rod adjustments on most Squiers, most Fenders of that nature. Unless it's a dual truss rod like you'll find in the Epiphones, that's a different story. A dual truss rod is an interesting creature, but let's just take a normal truss rod adjustment. A lot of videos on YouTube about how to do a neck adjustment. Even my man from the Eagles has a YouTube video where he talks about that. I can't think of his name right now. So even famous players who do their own, he did his own, you know, neck adjustments himself. God, from the Eagles, God, you know, they're, anyway, I don't even want to go down that memory hole right now. Most new guitars don't come perfectly set up. So if you're a new guitar player and you're like me and you go to Guitar Center, you're like, oh, great, I got a new guitar. And you go home, you know, was it set up? Probably not. Probably Joe Walsh. Thank you, Joe Walsh. Yeah, and he chides you. The first thing Joe Walsh says, that if my memory's been a couple of years since I've seen that video, he says he admonished you that as a guitar player, you should know how to do your adjustment yourself. It was that admonishment that I said, okay, Joe, show me how to do it. I learned how to do truss adjustments from that video. That's where I learned, from Joe Walsh. Believe it or not. You can find it on YouTube, I'm sure. But it was he really kind of looks down on you if you can't do something like that. So it's up to you or your tech to fix that. Now, not all guitars are created equal. Let's just throw that out there. Some of the easier guitars to work on are acoustic guitars. There's no tremolo, there's no pickups to worry about. Just keep it in a good unified room. Change the strings more often than you probably do or should. But you're probably golden with an acoustic guitar. Acoustic guitars, they can take a lot of punishment. You don't really want to do that, but they don't require a lot of setup. So they're a relatively easy thing to do. A hardtail electric guitar like a Les Paul, a Telecaster, or a PRS SC, as I said, are still simple, but you still can make occasional bridge and action adjustments. So there's that. Let me catch up in the chat here. He's a character. I agree. It's your tool, and you should learn ins and outs of it. Well, that is really the heart of the matter tonight and what we're talking about. Even it's just to identify what you prefer to pay a luthier to work on. Yeah, that again would be me. There are certain things, like for example, I bought this. This neck was used on another guitar, and that guitar got it. So this goes back to its original body, but there still is the case of setting this neck, and also putting in, because I'm changing the hardware to gold on this, and setting this neck properly, making sure that it is straight and correct. That is at the pinnacle of, that's where I kind of draw the line myself, because there's really tools that you need that I do not have, that I don't possess, in order to make it correct. I can get it in the ballpark for Fern so that it's not really a lot of work for him to do it, but setting necks, or if it's a brand new neck that hasn't, is a virgin neck, new holes need to be drilled when it's set in, all those things. That's where I draw the line at. I won't do that kind of. I got this one to where it's good. I'm going to put on all the gold hardware, replacement parts, and then I'm going to hand it over to Fern and say, hey, tighten this up. So, again, everybody's got a different threshold, a different level. That's where I called in Fern myself. But another one that I would stay away from are whole body electrics. Changing the pots, the pickups on a hollow body style guitar is extremely difficult. I would put it at an 8, possibly a 9 in terms of skill level. So unless you have a luthier that you can pay to do that for you, I would stay away from any of that kind of work on hollow body electrics. Maybe they're still they're difficult. It's a difficult thing that you really shouldn't mess with. One of the reasons I stay away from hollow body electrics, because you can't. Doing pickup swaps like I did on that Harley Benton, that took me 5 minutes. It would take me a considerable amount more time to do that on a semi-acoustic. I stay away from it. I wish I had a beater guitar I could mess with. All mine are new, kept pristine, and there are case queens. I hear you. I wouldn't care so much about screwing up a pre-junk guitar. These guitars, again, this is a reclaimed maple neck on these early 2000 Squires. This is a body, and I plan on doing the paint job and all that. I'm just kind of putting it together so that I can see how it looks. Do I really with the gold hardware? I'm trying to see if that's something I want to do, but Um, it is a learning tool as well. It is indeed something that, I paid $89 for this guitar. So it's not something that I'm afraid of messing up per se. I don't want to. I want to actually restore it and make it into a beautiful case queen again. That's my thing, if you've noticed, is taking these older guitars and turning them into, it's like pimp my guitar. That should be the name of my other program is Pimp My Guitar, because I like to restore them back to their natural beauty. So that got me into woodwork, difficulty level 8, 9, 10. Got me into oil finishes, got me into restore logos, got me into doing all of those things to restore these instruments. Fortunately, I order from Japan, I buy from Japan, import from Japan, and Japan used is as good as American new in some cases, in most cases. Yeah, a lot of it depends upon the guitar model too. If it's a pawn shop find, then it's a project, no problem tinkering with. Yeah, there's no way. I mean, uh, that vintage when I did a couple of these before I did the frets on that 1977 Greco that I restored to make sure, because that's not something that I wanted to mess with. That's something that I had planned uh, on keeping. And then on second thought, as you guys know, I changed my mind about that. Certainly put it up for sale. It could not have any issues with it. As a matter of fact, I repaired a lot on that guitar and brought it back up to just a beauty, if you guys follow that. So that's kind of my thing. And that's the skills that I learned, are the things in order to make it look pretty, listen to defer to make it play right. So that's kind of my feeling on it. But if it's a rare collectible or I have an emotional bond with it, I'll let my guy work. Yeah, I guess we're all in that way. We all fall within or in one or the other, or sometimes both categories with that. And there's nothing wrong with that. But if you're a new guitar player, I suggest that you really take the time to listen to what I'm saying and what these guys are saying to you about, people will teach you two things: what to do and what not to do. And it's up to you to discern which is best. I think you're getting a lot of good advice here for me in the chat, if you're a new guitar player, about what you really should consider. The truth of the matter is, there are some guitars that are easy to maintain and easy to work. I find that Strats, by design, and Telecasters, by design, are very simple instruments to take apart, put back together again. I could take a Strat apart and put it back together again, bloated. I'm pretty confident right now. I could say that. I should do that. I should do a show where I put, like, I'm putting this together. Can I do it blindfolded? Yeah, I'm pretty sure I could do that as long as everything is laid out. But simplicity there. Les Pauls, getting a little bit more complex there. Certainly, you're not going to be swapping necks on those. Changing tuners on those are a different deal than with a Strat, but still relatively easy. So again, these are the type of things, cosmetic things you want to do like that, changing the tuners, changing the bridge, or doing things like that. That's pretty much a 5 or 6, maybe even less than that. Actually, not even a 5. I'll put it at a 4. They're not very difficult things to do. And that is not really necessarily guitar dependent in those things. Again, like I said, semi-acoustic guitars, semi-electric guitars, you want to stay away from dealing with the electrons, because that's a skill level really that you should take to your guy. So there's that. Locking tuners, I've got to say, or something that are okay. If you say, I want to put on locking tuners because this guitar, won't stay in tune. Most of the time, guys, it's your nut, Isn't it? It hasn't always with us guys, it's the nut. If it's not right, if it's not cut right, if you get binding in your nut, different things that can happen with your nut, and it's a crapshoot with a lot of these cheap budget imports. So try not to use the word cheap, but these budget imports, um, that it is something worth considering before looking at doing something like locking tuners. So there's that. Again, I touched upon this one myth, that common myth among beginners, that an expensive guitar will stay in tune forever. As I pointed out, a poorly set up 3000 guitar will play like trash, whereas a $300 guitar, a good setup, always will play like a dream. Always will play like a dream. Sorry guys, they're doing some construction out here of some sort tonight, and I don't know if you can hear that, but it's bugging the hell out of me. Can you guys hear that? Anyway, I'll persevere. And that's the truth of it. Even if you spend $3,000 on the guitar, the poor thing needs a setup every now and then. The poor thing needs to have the strings changed on it every now and then. There's a lot of things that it certainly needs adjustments every now and then. And these are things that you really should be doing. So it doesn't really matter how much it costs your guitar. These are things that are truisms throughout the price ranges. You never need to adjust the truss rod. That's not true. Wood moves with temperature and humidity. And temperature and humidity change depending upon the time of year. It is wintertime. It is generally, in colder climates, a time of low humidity, whereas the summertime is high humidity. And these factors will change the action. And if your action feels off, then, fret buzzes that you didn't have there before, things like that, probably it's in time to do time to check the neck. So there's that. I should say my person, because I actually know a great female luthier too. I hear you. Girl or boy, it don't matter, as long as they know what they're doing. Now, you guys, if you own a guitar, if you're a new beginner, I'm talking to the beginners, or maybe some of you guys who've been here. I always talk about tools, gathering your tools. My socket wrench set out today. Really, if you're working on guitars, an indispensable tool. Certainly if you're putting on tuners, things like that, taking off tuners. But some of the things that I think that you're really going to need as a beginner, these are the tools that you should have around the house, and these are the tools that you should be learning how to use. The first one is a truss rod wrench. I mentioned the Gibson multi-purpose tool, which I always generally have up here. I don't know why I don't have it. Maybe I was using it for something, because I use it. I actually use that thing. You can use it on Strats as well as Les Pauls. You can get it for about 20 bucks, but it has a truss rod adjustment feature on it, and it is very usable. So regardless of which, get yourself a truss rod wrench. You can get them for cheap. Well, not from China anymore, because those tariffs sure did kick in. Get yourself a neck relief gauge. Get yourself a couple of gauges. This is a measurement, so you can check your nuts. That didn't come out right. There's a couple of gauges that I think that are advantageous to you to have. Allen keys. You gotta have a set of Allen keys. You're gonna need those. You're going to need contact cleaner. Once a year, just use it. So you buy it and use it just once or twice a year. It'll last forever. For scratchy pots, I have a device in there that is a room heater and also humidifier as well, that my guitars are kept near. If you guys have never noticed my videos, that black looking thing that looks like from 2001: Space Odyssey, that's a heater humidifier. I keep my guitars in that area over there specifically because that's there. in order to keep that under control. So don't just, keep your guitar in the window in the sun. Uh, if you got to hang it on the wall, that's going to affect a lot of things as well. But the basic tools, truss rod wrench. Um, get yourself, one of these with a full set of heads. Get yourself a neck relief gauge. Get your a set of Allen keys, contact cleaner, and watch the humidity on your guitar where it's stored at in order to prevent it from having too bad a fluctuation, so you don't have to do that all the time. Change your strings before they sound bad or dead. James Jamerson, the famous Motown bassist, never changed his strings. He said the funk is in the junk or the gunk. That man had the skills to make a tuba sound like a good bass guitar. So that was just superstition on his part. Change your strings. It has to do with the clarity, the way it sounds. You can break them in, that's fine, of course. But there's a difference between being broken in and just being rusted. So there's that. Just saw a video about how the tariffs may affect the instrument world. We've been hitting on that. Scott says, I got a tool chest that's 7 feet tall with every tool under the sun except for a truss rod tool. Yeah, it's weird, man. You start doing assessments, and you're like, really? I don't have one of those? It's better than being that guy who doesn't have any tools at all. I always pity that guy. I got neighbors always calling me up saying, hey, can I borrow this? Can I borrow that? Or do you have one of those? I was like, yeah, man. I've traveled the world and I've always somehow managed to keep a basic, toolkit with me. I don't know about you, some of you guys. I hate new strings on my acoustics. I don't like doing that because stringing, it's again a very simple thing to do, but a lot of acoustic guitars, nylon string ones, usually have a peg system where you push the string in and then follow that with a peg that goes in, and that can be difficult. There are soft mallets that you can use in order to drive those pegs in and make sure that they're secure. Removing those pegs, again, because they get stuck in there, they get tight. You'll have to have a proper lifting tool for that, which I have over here somewhere. Needle nose pliers, like these, for example, are very good for working on acoustic guitars and getting those strings out. So stuff like that. I just use a mnemonic impact gun. That's funny. That's hilarious. I hate new strings on my acoustics. Yeah, but you gotta change it. And just bringing that up, like I said, acoustic guitar changing strings, I didn't mention that can be a little, especially with nylon acoustics, that can be a pain in the ass. So maybe that's 3 or 4 there, depending. Again, I talked about keeping your guitar in a consistent humidity. And learn basic setup skills because it'll save you a lot of money and frustration. And quite frankly, it'll have a lot to do with your tone. It'll have a lot to do with how you feel about an instrument. Whether it's that instrument that gets picked up every day and it's just a joy to play, or that one that just sits in the corner. I have worked on those Harley Benton frets. I work on them again because that is the only thing about that guitar that I don't like. I haven't been able to get those fret edges smooth like the ones on this old Squire, where it's just butter. Like I said, you don't even feel it. It's just butter. It's just so smooth. But I've been working on it. That's probably something I'll do this weekend when I'm just sitting around. Supposedly we're going to get a big freeze this weekend, so I'm not exactly rushing out anyway. I'm trying to recover from my surgery, so I'm puttering around. So I'm probably going to do some fret work on that Harley Benton. I've had it for 3 years. still working on it. You know, I just changed the pickups to P90s, and yeah, I'm gonna probably do some fret just because I've gotten good with my fret work, and I think that I can get those frets to be a little more comfortable. I hate jumbo frets anyway. I like vintage frets. A lot of people don't like those because they consider them to be small. You know, I don't need speed bumps when I'm playing. So even in that regard, that's a guitar that used to not get picked up because of that reason. The more I work on it, the more I learn, and the more I get it to where I want it, it's one that's getting picked up more for playing. So there's that. Sam, how you doing? Welcome. How you doing? Um, yeah. So there's that. So guitar ownership isn't just about playing. And what's the takeaway here, Mike? What are you saying to us? I'm saying that guitar ownership just isn't about playing. It's about taking care of your instrument. If you learn some basics, it'll save you money, frustration, and make the bonding with that instrument more pleasurable. You know, a guitar that you work on is a guitar you know intimately. Um, and you appreciate it. Like I said, I always point to it as probably being a famous example is Trigger. That guitar is an acoustic that's beat to hell, but it's still, Willie Nelson is still using it. After, I think that guitar is something like, it's damn, it was an old when he bought it, so it's got to be hitting 100 years old. But again, it's the upkeep on it is excellent. So even if you have 50, then you should be doing maintenance on 50. Another reason I don't want a lot of guitars, because I feel a responsibility to do the maintenance on each and every one of them, regardless of whether I'm playing them in heavy rotation or not. Gotta head out, but thanks for the inspiration. Thank you, CJ Boy. I appreciate you showing up. Thanks, Sam. I appreciate seeing you. So, I have a 12-string guitar already, but I never change the strings on it. Yeah, 12-string guitars are the worst, man. I had one for a short time because I used it for some record I was doing for a TV commercial that I thought needed call for a 12-string guitar. So I went. This was in Singapore. I went out and bought one because I had that kind of budget at the time, and it lasted that recording, and then I quickly got rid of it because changing the strings on that thing was a bitch. Tough stuff. 12 strings or acoustics are tough. I can't see myself buying another 12-string guitar. Well, yeah, I bought that one, used it for that TV commercial, and that was it. Didn't last. There's a great YouTube video showing Trigger getting worked on, yeah. 12 strings are nice, but you spend almost as much tuning them as you do playing them. I would almost prefer a chorus pedal myself. Sometimes a 12-string is irreplaceable. You can't, yeah, there's no getting away from that. Now, you can, what I used to do as a trick, I had a guitar, a Yamaha acoustic, that I had strung with the upper half of a 12-string acoustic pack. So it was a very high playing guitar. And then my regular Yamaha I had with just regular acoustic strings on it. And I doubled the guitar part. So I played the guitar part on the Yamaha, and then I played it on top of that with the Yamaha with just the set of 12-string acoustic strings on it, the upper set. And that created a very, I would say, realistic 12-string sound. You know, if you don't have a 12-string guitar, that's something that you can try doing. It worked for me. I wish it was a robot tuner 12-string. Yeah. Yeah, that robot tuner thing didn't really catch on, did it? So those are my thoughts. I think that, and really tonight's message was really to the beginner out there, guitarist, to let you know that fantastic, great. I am so happy that you joined that 10% of us who play an instrument, and that you invested in getting that instrument. But something that probably here's something that probably no one ever tells you is you need to learn the responsibility of the upkeep of that instrument. Just the basics, you know, just the basics. Or if you are fortunate to live in a town or a city that has a Luther that you can take it to, have that done every 6 months. One or the other. One or the other. But that is that is your responsibility. Now, I'm going to say that's about the period of time most young people will change their shoes every 6 months. So that's the other reason to encourage you to go to the luthier, because they will do that for you as well, as with the setup, which generally will cost you about $65 US, no more than that, every 6 months, or learn the skills yourself. Those are your options. And I really don't think they're really negotiable options. There's a lot of leeway with those options, but I am of the group that wants to learn to do those things as much as I can myself, because from an economical standpoint, I need to save every dime I can. Like I'm sure just about everybody else out there as well. So obtaining the tools in order to do that kind of work was step one. Uh, Looking at a lot of YouTube videos, talking to a luthier like Fern, who's more than free. Luthiers, if you don't, you have to stop them from talking, because they will talk on and on and on and on and go on, because the depth of their knowledge is so profound. If you got one who's willing to share that knowledge with you, then take advantage of that, and then do it yourself. Um, Fern always appreciates when I bring guitar for him to finish, because literally there's not a great deal of things he needs to do in order to do just that. Because over the years, I've learned how to get it to a point. If I go in and it's not right, like that tint job that I did on the new neck for my parts caster, he will send me home. But I'm glad he did that, because by sending me home, I was able to, and with this advice, do this in this kind of light, check it in this kind of light, change the adjustments of your ratio of mixture there, and do this, that it came out so lovely, that the second time around worked out so well. So there's that. So just my advice to you, if you're a new guitarist out there, those are your two options, and you really should endeavor to learn to do as much as you can. Think you'll be happy with it. Lot of I am going to change the way that I film things. I have been filming things in the next room for regular content near my Laney and in that area, but I think I want to change the way that my regular content looks in demos, so I'm going to start doing them in here. So I'm going to figure that out. So a little change in style here. I may not keep it. We'll see how it works out. Lighting, change, those kind of things. To just change the look, make it a little bit more fresh here. Try to get some new eyes. So that's coming up. Hey, new here. JR, it's nice to meet you. Welcome. I'm glad you're here. We're wrapping up now. I want to thank you guys for tuning in. Everybody who watched live or will watch this in the rerun, I hope you took out something from tonight. I want to thank all the new folks who showed up tonight, and some of the familiar faces that are always here supporting this channel. I want to let you guys know that I do this selfishly a little bit, because I do enjoy each and every one of you and your thoughts and comments, and input so much that it's really a joy to sit here twice a week and do these live streams. Want to get my regular content up, like I said. Thinking about things I can do in order to spice it up a little bit. Maybe a little bit change of scenery might be good. But you guys are always here for my live streams, and I do appreciate that. So until the next one, which will be the Sunday Night Hump, you guys take care, which is Super Bowl Sunday. So I don't know who's going to be here for that. I don't watch the Super Bowl, but I will be here regardless. So if you don't want to watch the Super Bowl, you guys are more than welcome to come here, and we will have another subject to talk about. Guys, yeah, for the 3P. We'll see. We'll see what happens. I am. It's not to say that I'm not interested. This is a chance to be historical. I know the guy who gets to go home with Taylor Swift is not a loser either way at night. So, if you're into that. But in any case, it'll be interesting to see how it turns out. You guys take care. I'll see you on Super Bowl Sunday. Bye bye.